Party will be joining me here for the full hour. And as you know, also that general elections, to start off, general elections were recently held January 11th, 2024. And who would have thought that within 4 months we would be having a conversation or interviews with political candidates and MPs and what have you about going to the polls again. Now, of the 15 parliamentary seats, the majority comprise of 4 political parties joining forces with 2 of the elected candidates to form a slim majority of 8 candidates to be referred to later on to as the 2x4 government. Gosh, I hate that name. Well, anyhow, I have 4 members of the PFP party joining me here in the studios this morning. Let me say welcome and good morning to MP Ludmila the Weever, also leader of the party, MP Melissa Gumbs. We've also got Mr. Patrice, who was intended to be the Minister Plenipotentiary, Patrice Gumbs, and also former Minister of VROMI, that is Mr. Former MP, Raeyhon Peterson, joining me in the studios this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. How you all doing today?
Great. Good morning, Grace.
Thank you all for taking time to come in the studios this morning to be here with me in the breakfast lounge. Now, this must be a bittersweet moment for all of you here this morning as you find yourself in campaign mode once again. Now, first and foremost, MP Gumbs, you can provide an insight on let's talk about working relationship that the URSM, DP, PFP now coalition had in Parliament, because many, even within the opposition circles, have hinted at discourse or not necessarily being in full agreement with fellow coalition members as the main factor that led to the breakage of that coalition. How do you respond to this?
I mean, I've heard those statements, Grace, but it's always a little funny to me because I think anyone that you ask, even from their own camp, would say that that previous coalition also had some internal issues that were often very visible based on their own attendance in Parliament. So for us, I think the exhaustion of first campaign, then election, then formation that seemed to be delayed with whatever, moving of the goalpost was occurring, throughout the process, that may have come across as friction, but in reality, it was just frustration with the external issues and, constantly being bombarded with, are you sure you want to be in this? You think you're going to last? Even during the budget meeting, while I was chairing in the second half of that, to be approached and said, this thing ain't going to last. And I'm like, the people said that about y'all, but somehow, thanks to PFP, you managed to keep it together.
Right.
So, for me, I just kind of listened to it and let it go in one end or the other.
Yeah, I threw this at when I say through this, I actually asked the leader of the Now Party this question. I'm going to throw it at you also. You got 4 different political parties here and in a coalition of 8, but 4 different ideologies. Mm-hmm. How do you respond to that now? How do you guys kind of mesh? How do you bring that together?
I mean, I can tell you, working in foreign affairs is about dialogue, communication.
Yeah.
There's 190-something countries, 20 countries in the world, and somehow they manage to, at times, reach consensus and make the world move on.
Right.
So 4 parties, 4 different ideologies is nothing. And I think you have to realize that these are parties who came together realizing that the country was tired and that somehow it had to work. And we sat down for hours upon hours upon hours. And, our party leader, Melissa Gumbs, stressed the importance of communication and having weekly coalition meetings, and in between that time, that didn't always happen, but communication lines were always open. Right. So it's about communication, dialogue, and hashing out what your pressure points are. Mm-hmm. This is why we requested to have an informateur, because we wouldn't want to just sign on to a coalition to get into power, but sit down and say, listen, we do have some differences. Let's hash them out through an informatoire process, and then from there we go into a formatoire process, and then we bring forth a government that is strong. Right. That was what we did.
The outside forces that is mentioned so pretty often where this government is concerned played a major role actually in sort of dismantling this 2x4 government. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, Raeyhon can share a bit more on that.
Right. I'm going to get to Mr. Peterson in a bit. Yeah. But if you want to answer, go right ahead, Mr. Peterson.
Okay, can I ask a question I can raise?
I said the outside forces was very basically at work, so to speak, in basically working to get to the point to dismantling this this government, and it was basically Stevie Wonder could have seen that too.
Yeah, no, definitely, Grace, and good morning, everybody, once again, and also happy birthday to MB Ludmila.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that.
Thank you,
Thanks for the
Ray.
breakfast in the breakfast lounge. Right.
So I'm coming back to that. No, I can actually personally confirm that back then MP Maingret actually told me that he was being offered certain type of things, and like you said, those are not coming from politicians; those are coming from outside forces. Now this is a reality. This is the reality, and this is what we are facing. Like Minister Gumbs said, communication is key, and I can honestly say that at no point in time did we, as a coalition, experience any discourse, as was said in a press release. Nothing was brought to us. Like Patrice said, communication is key, and I can honestly say that MP Maingret did not even give us a whiff that he was, unhappy or discontent, and he wasn't even involved. I haven't seen him in any coalition meetings that I was there. So I mean, it's exactly what you said, Luis. Let's not beat around the bush. This is what's going on. It's personal interest. It is greed.
Right. So when he approached you, what was your response? What was your reaction?
My reaction, and I have witnesses that were also there, but my reaction to him was, well, it might seem enticing, but I have been in that position as a young MP, as a recent MP, and they will come at you with big numbers, 6 figures, 7 figures. That's very nice. But by the end of the day, you're there to represent the people. And my advice to him was just be an MP for a while, see how it goes, and then see where you're at. But don't be so, rushed to think that this is a get-rich-quick scheme, because it's not.
Yeah, and Grace and I can even say, if I may, not that I'm the most senior person in Parliament, but as a young MP who not only has served a 4-year term, but also grew up in this environment, as MP Weever also did, I actually took it upon myself to even speak to the new MPs and the 2 that were recently sworn in, including MP Maingret. And I said, guys, people like Raeyhon said are going to come at you with everything. Yeah. It is going to be trips, it's going to be boat rides, it's going to be flights to Belize, tickets to the Bulls game. Like, it's going to be a lot. And you have to, within yourself, decide if that's the type of person that you want to be. Because even in the business world, you have those temptations, but it's really about character. We keep saying you cannot legislate that. You can only, as a party, we've tried to do our best to make sure that people with that type of character do not end up in PFP.
Yeah, right.
You understand? And that's where, I say you have to start at this level, at the party level, to protect yourself against the pressure that is coming from people who know that there are those who will fall for any amount of money. Right.
He was probably played upon because he seemed to be the weakest link in the group.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In hindsight, he was.
I wanted to chime in on something that Melissa said too, as well just now. Absolutely. I was waiting for one of us to say that you are going to go at the weakest link. Everyone knows that. That is a successful plan of attack, and that's exactly what happened. But what Melissa was talking about, the fact that she was speaking to the MPs, and I remember having a conversation with her saying, Melissa, we are going through this coalition where some heavy hitters from the coalition are going in as ministers, and we are going to be left with inexperienced MPs. And I said, we have to remember to talk to the newer MPs to say, you are going to be tempted by a lot. You are also going to be reactive, and every time someone says something negative towards your coalition or you feel this need to go out and respond immediately on Facebook, or to have a press briefing, or could do a video and say, no, this is not what I did. But this is part of the lay of the land of being a politician, of being a representative. You can't be reactive, because you have to be a little bit, patient with the information that is coming your way, and making sure that you can digest it and say, well, let me not just go and react to it. And I told her, I said, Mel, you are here the longest out of all of us, besides the senior president of Parliament, MP Westcott Williams. I said, we have to keep this dialogue with the young ones. And when I was speaking specifically, I was talking about MP Roseberg, Shamira Roseberg, Kevin Maingret, the new ones coming in, Viren Kotai, just so that we say, hey guys, we're the young ones. I'm the least experienced MP back then, because I came in from being minister. And I said, we need to keep it, man, tight. So no one gets this temptation to stray away, because that's what they will do. They will break you.
Right. And Mr. Gumbs, you wanted to mention something?
No, I just think, just piggybacking on what MP Gumbs said earlier,
Uh-huh.
you know, it's this idea of personality and what you're made of. And I think, you know, I've heard so much sort of discussion in the community about, well, you know, he based on his sort of origins of where he's from, him being a Haitian national.
Wow.
And I've been very cautious people. We need to get away from this. He's not from Sint Maarten.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Labeling.
In the end of the
basically.
day, Kevin is a Dutch citizen who has the right to run, and he ran, he got into parliament. This has nothing to do with his nationality or his ethnicity, it's about his personality.
Right.
Because others have done it, they're Dutch citizens, they're Sint Maarteners. This has nothing to do with being a Haitian.
Precisely.
Haitian people are hardworking people, they contribute to this community. Again, this is nothing about being a Haitian or Sint Maarten or whoever. This is about Kevin's personality.
Mhm.
The personality called Kevin dropped government,
Right.
not the Haitian drop government.
Community,
We have to be
right.
very
Yeah.
careful because
Yeah.
in a small community, what's happening now is that we're going to leave open this sort of narrative that, oh, there's us versus them. No, it's Kevin's personality and need for validation that caused him to become a weak link to go towards this new
Okay.
coalition.
And I
Yeah.
think too the narrative, you know, Grace, I said, you know, that I said to someone yesterday that I had a meeting with, because they said, oh, you must be surprised. I said, no. I said, this is the modus operandi of especially a national alliance that is put out of government and put into opposition. If you look over the last 14 years of us being a country, most of the time, they are who kind of benefits from these drops of government. And I really think that people are starting to wake up, because if I had faced a backlash like what they had happening to them, you know, when they walked out of the credentials meeting, I would have thought twice. You know, if I had gone through an election where after 4 years in a stable government, my party lost 1,000 votes, I would also ask myself some questions, but it doesn't seem to be happening there. So I also think that, you know, whereas Kevin, yes, made a decision, you cannot walk into a new house without the door being open.
Exactly.
That's the
Right.
bottom line.
Exactly.
And the door had to be opened, and we know that it's done. You know, again, growing up in this, I've heard the comments, I've listened to previous young MPs about what they were promised, what they were told, etc. So it's not anything surprising, again, that these two parties now have, in their bitterness, because that's what it is, let's call a spade, in their bitterness of being left out of the discussions, are now in this, have now done this then.
Right. Now, MP Gumbs, Patrice Gumbs, how disheartening is it for you in terms, I'm referring to you as MP, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Okay.
It's too many gums, isn't it?
Yeah, Mr. Gumbs. Okay, yeah, the Gumbs, right? Mr. Gumbs, now let me put this question to you. How disheartening is it for you in terms of not being able to even reach and take up the post to serve as Minister Plenipotentiary in the Netherlands? And in that same breath, what were some of the areas you were eager to tackle once in The Hague on behalf of St. Maarten?
Yeah, I think for me it's twofold. It's obviously one, you know, there's not even a surprise, it's more of a disappointment. And I think just going back a bit on what MP Gumbs said, the stability of the last 4 years was because there was no open doors or windows in the opposition's house the last time. So I think, having worked for quite some time in government, and I think, you know, working in particular with the several prime ministers and the ministers and the last prime minister, you saw what you thought was growth. You saw what you thought was sort of this grace and statesmanship that was sort of you kind of advised on for the past 4 years. You saw it come through and thought it would be applied in the reverse. And so from a personal point of view, it's very disappointing to see someone that you saw come in as your previous prime minister sort of perform this growth, only to have, in the end, be a part of what they indicated was the need, maturity. What I think, what we've done in this onboarding process is that we've seen that, because we've been onboarding for the past 2 weeks, what we found out is that a lot of the things that the previous government said that was done, were doing, being undertaken, wasn't done. We can get into that a bit later. But there are some heavy deadlines that we have to meet within the next couple of weeks, couple of months. The previous government left those unfinished. Essentially, when they lost, what seems to be like when they lost the elections and didn't form part of the government, they kind of just dropped their hands and stopped doing work. There's a couple of things we'll speak about too. One of them being this housing project the Prime Minister spoke about, 200 million that's being jeopardized right now, as well as the fact of the COLA indexation. So vacation pay and indexation of salaries, all that was just dropped. We got a lump sum payment for civil servants ahead of the Christmas, ahead of the elections. typical quick election ploy, and then everything was just dropped when they lost. So I think for me to see that sort of personal side of what was promised was said, the person you knew come back do this, and then secondly, kind of what I was working on as my plans going into the Netherlands. We didn't get to the Netherlands yet, but we've been doing the work on the ground.
Right.
So I think a lot of people don't know what the Minister Plenipotentiary does. It's basically the voice of the Prime Minister in the Kingdom Council of Ministers on behalf of other ministers as well. And one of the critical points has been the issues of the students in Sint Maarten and the Sint Maarten people in the Netherlands. There's absolutely no connection anymore between people of Sint Maarten once they leave and Sint Maarten, their country. Before I even got sworn in, there were so many students coming to me, hi, you don't know me, but these are my concerns, these are my issues. We have a big number of students out there who are doing different things, studying what we need to study, what we talk about in our national development vision, what the Prime Minister used to speak about, bring back home students, let's invest in the country. One of the key things that I wanted to do is basically create this database. And not the student database of just having names on paper and sending them a Sint Maarten postcard, but it's basically how can you harness the expertise of the people who live outside of Sint Maarten and bring that back to help develop Sint Maarten. That was the first thing. I think a lot of the things too, people go abroad and they lose complete control of who they are, and there's no support anymore from the Sint Maarten House. There's a lot of issues around what students face around the cost of living and the lack of housing for students in the Netherlands when they go. A lot of parents have approached me, hey, my kids in the Netherlands, please, look out for them. They're having such an issue. If you can intervene, we know it's not to say what you can do in Holland, but just give an advisory word, help our students out there. And that was one of the key things to focus on. Beyond that, the more abstract becomes, there's a big Dutch government coming in, which has a very, very inward-looking perspective. That has to be addressed through somebody who has the knowledge, the expertise to lobby, negotiate, and bridge that gap between Sint Maarten and the Netherlands.
Right. Now, with this drop, basically that how the outer world and the Netherlands in particular. I saw a report was published yesterday, I think in the NRC Dagblad, that talking about Sint Maarten government falling within such a short period of time, 17 days. And you're hearing from the opposition, former opposition benches, basically in 17 days, for the past 17 days, this government has done nothing. What can you actually accomplish in 17 days?
I mean,
and that is a question that was put also yesterday on the
years.
open forum here in the Breakfast Lounge yesterday. You believe the government wasn't given a fair chance, in your opinion?
At all? Not at all. I mean, as we said, Grace, it's a matter of screening process that was extended due to the informateurs process, to identify like compatibilities, and then you had the actual screening process, information process, and then, as I said, the goalposts tend to keep moving, which just made it that much more stressful and difficult. And then we swear in, and then, like I mentioned, in last week, you had, for the first time ever, according to me, and I think Minister Gumbs can correct me if I'm wrong, the first time ever, an onboarding process to introduce ministers and their cabinets to the processes of government, something I think actually should have been done from since 10-10-10, and so in an onboarding, which is an assessment, you're deep diving into your respective ministries, you're figuring out what is going on. And when you read the comments, for example, from the Minister of Finance on the real state of affairs, you realize that, as we've said before, here in this Breakfast Lounge, you got a lot of mold that's been painted over, but the mold is still there. And that's really where we're at still, and I think you cannot hope to accomplish anything in 70 days. And the comment was made too on the floor of Parliament about GEBE. And I absolutely cannot wait for the acting Minister of VROMI to put out her statements finally on the real state of affairs in VROMI, especially when it relates to GEBE. And we've been 2 years on now, and nothing was done to solve that particular problem. But in 17 days, while onboarding, you expect it to be resolved. So I think again, people, if I listen to the call-ins on your show, the last 2 times you had it, it's people are upset because I recognize those voices. Those voices are not PFP supporters. And that's why I say, self-reflection maybe is necessary for both parties.
Right. Now I'm going to turn the mic over to Mr. Peterson. as a chief of staff for Ministry for VROMI. Acting Minister Janssen Webster, we see it on the front page of the paper today, also was in the paper yesterday, that as Acting Minister Janssen Webster in the CALM press briefing on Tuesday said that VROMI has been operating without leadership, pointing to numerous vacancies not being filled, lack of department heads, no SG, etc. Now, if that is indeed the case, how has the ministry been able to function effectively for all this time?
The short answer is, Grace, it hasn't. It hasn't been functioning. And what the minister said, that is exactly what's going on. When we reached into the ministry, no SG is in place. We were missing department heads. A department head of a domain was not in place. We don't have a policy department head. We don't have a permits department head, just an acting head. So it's pretty bad. And then when you look at the SG's staff bureau, they don't have a legal advisor. Only the secretary is there. They don't have a financial controller as yet. So the body of VROMI is not there. So then I asked myself, what is really going on? Because if the body is not there, but you're still, making executive decisions, what type of decisions are you making? And that's when I went into what was the result of, for example, the last year. And I can tell you, Grace, all of the backlash that the former government has received when it comes to the backlog in permits, the backlog in domain, failure to adhere to the DROM verdict, basically making it so that no issuance of land is available, is possible, actually. I did a quick search within the last 2 weeks that we were there, and I found some disturbing things, disturbing to say the least. When you look at what has been prioritized by the former government, it is not the people. It is foreign developers who are investing millions into high rises alone, and then you get a same opposition now coalition asking us, what is the deal with GB? Well, if you guys paid any attention to GB within these last 2 years, or even asked GB their opinion on all of these high rises and big developments that were coming in, we would have not had the problem that we have today, where we cannot handle our grid. And if I show you now, Grace, because I have some paperwork with me, and I can show you.
Please share it with the radio listeners. Other viewers also on your
Facebook. For sure. I have papers here of a couple of permits, 4 of them, and I am just going to read the estimated building costs for these permits. And none of these developments have started. These are just pending building permits to start to get executed. You have one here for 3.5 million guilders. That is the estimated building cost. You have another one here for 3.6 million guilders, another estimated building cost. You have one here for 11,600,000 guilders. And then the nicest one, this one is 28 million guilders. These are developments that nobody knows about, that GB doesn't know about, that still have to start, and then would have to also add themselves to our grid. How are we going to do this? So if we're talking about sustainable development, as per the last the previous minister of VROMI, that this goes exactly against all of that. So that is just a whiff of what we are finding in VROMI. That is just basically the permits department. Don't even get me started on domain affairs, because then we're going to be here for 2 hours.
Well, give me 5 minutes.
You open Pandora's box.
Give me a few minutes on that.
All right. Well, then, when we look at domain affairs, first of all, the lack of the hearing to the DDOM verdict basically says that if you do not develop a policy, which was the DDOM verdict, I think dates back to 2021 or 2022, the latest. It says that if you do not develop this policy that creates transparency for the people, then every issuance of land that you do as a minister might be deemed unlawful, and that means that the notaries also will not give you a deed, or actually work to get your deed passed. And that is what's happening right now. We have so many people who receive decrees that expire in 6 months, of course, because that's the expiry date of a decree, but are stuck because they cannot get to the notary, because the notary is telling them, well, the minister did not bring a policy, but he gave you a besluit. I don't understand why, but I still cannot pass your deed. That is why the previous minister, I think this year, while he was in a demissionary state, decided that he is going to make a ministerial beschiking in which he decides that every single decree given by VROMI in the past up to June this year would still be valid. Why? Because he thought that once we got in, we were going to do the hard work that he had to do for the last 2-3 years, which is basically create said policy for the people, for domain, for transparency, execute that, and then you can start giving off land. He said, you know what, I'm going to skip that step. I'm going to just make sure that everybody that I give a bushlight to within these last couple of months have a little extra space. Meanwhile, let's hope that Ray does the work and establishes the policy on time so that all of these people can still go and get their deeds passed. I can tell you that that's not the case. That is not going to happen. Everybody's degree is going to expire by next week, and then everybody's going to have an issue. So the mantra of the previous minister, and I can actually look at the Over the Bank case in which he messed it up by over issuing the land and then proceeded to sue the recipients of land just to avoid the ombudsman to continue her systemic investigation on the case. I plan to correct all of that within this short period of time that we have.
How much time are we talking about here?
Well, until we get to elections, I guess.
Right. You uncovered a whole lot in the ministry, of course. Do you believe, Mr. Peterson, that was one of the reasons why they were so hesitant or reluctant or worried about you getting into the basically into the offices or the files? I have to pick this up. Sorry, I'm gonna get to you in a minute.
And you know, Grace, I also saw some political victimization that was going on, because I remember when I was an MP and MP Emmanuel, I think back then he was busy with a supermarket that he has up in Saudi Ward, and he requested his permit, as per the regular procedure, and at some point in time he received a building stop. He stopped building, of course, because of course he was in opposition as well, and he was a little bit afraid of political.
Who are we talking about again?
MP Emmanuel.
Christophe Emmanuel. Yeah. Okay, right.
And when we got in, he asked me, "Hey, can you check on the status of my permit that I received the building stop for about 2 years ago?" And I said, "Sure. I mean, it's just a building permit number. We can check it out." And apparently, when they gave him a building stop, they tried to also fool him into getting into a court case. Why? Because they issued him a building stop and they expected him to not sign. Now, if somebody doesn't sign a building stop, you can take it forward in the court and you can, basically get to a demolition. MP Emmanuel back then did not understand what was going on, so he was very angry at VROMI. And when he received this building stop, he thought, okay, they're going to continue to working on the permit. I went and checked, and back in May 2022, his permit was taken. Was given a building stop, and then the permit was put on hold. It was not worked on. It was not approved. Nothing happened to it. And this is literally just a very small permit compared to a permit that I have here that is for a 14-level residential building, residential, which is just condos.
Right.
So when you look at these permits and you look at the elucidation as to how much they explain why they want to approve a permit or why they want to deny a permit, and then you look at the elucidation for these big developments worth millions, and you see that the elucidation is less than half a page, then you see that something is definitely wrong.
And these structures, where exactly are they? Basically, will be constructed, so to speak.
Some in Maho, some in Simpson Bay, and it's basically that side of the hill again, which has always been prioritized.
Yeah. Okay. So these structures, like you mentioned, will be down in that luxurious area there, and GB. Now that is a major problem where that is concerned, because we've realized that GB has been experiencing load shedding over the past few months.
Yeah.
Actually, how is GB going to be able? With what we have now, we're already experiencing difficulties. How can GB now handle those additional projects that will be going up if they do go up?
In reality, especially going on what Raeyhon just said, that they can't. I mean, we have been known as a party to give you the truth, even if the truth is hard to handle sometimes. He just gave us examples of massive projects coming on board that our network can sustain. If our network can sustain one engine being down due to a rat incident again, I mean, I don't understand how you think new buildings coming on board can actually help us sustain this and avoid load shedding. No, the reality is you have to handle it right now. But I think what we have seen from the government that lost the election, who wants to be back in again, is a certainty that they can't handle it. They can't handle the GB debacle. They cannot. And what I want to say about GB again is, if you have a government that was actively involved in getting rid of the 3 managing directors during their 4-year tenure against proper, sound business and financial advice, And then here we are again in this year going through a recruitment process for those same 3 managing directors that they got rid of to be filled, obviously, by whoever is the right candidate for it. What does that tell you about them? You caused the problem. Here we are again, full circle, back to the problem you caused. We're still waiting for 3 managing directors to be put there at GB because of your fault and your political interference. Let's be real. So answering your question, Grace, I am sorry, public. I have no other better news for you than to make the right decision to put people who won't let GB unmanned, who won't have GB unmanned, who will give GB the right chance to actually listen to the employees who are telling you what's wrong, who are telling you what's wrong in the power plant, who are telling you what the company needs without trying to accommodate your friends.
Right. Now, while I have you on the mic, don't stay right there.
You want me to take it back?
Yeah. Now, MP the Weever, your seat was left vacant during several meetings in the House of Parliament, and you were even called out for the show up message. Do you, well, of course, the public wants to know, because after the breakfast lounge yesterday, I received a call from a gentleman and he said, yeah, Lady Grace, you mentioned that the PFP will be here tomorrow, but is MP the Weever coming? And I said, yes, she will be here. So now she's here. So let's answer the question.
So first I'm going to say that I didn't leave my seat vacant. I didn't give up my seat in Parliament. The good people of this country voted me in on January 11th, and I know that they will do it again for us coming up whenever these snap elections will be called. My seat was never left vacant. So I want to actually give this story so that we can actually put it to bed once and for all. Since election, I have been contacted by CFT. For those of you in the public, good morning again, who didn't know that I have been the chair of the Committee of Finance pretty much for most of the time that I was in Parliament. I became the chair of finance again. CFT was in contact saying, hey, we want a meeting with you. The meeting can only happen in April, the week of April, ending week of April 19th or the week of the 22nd. So I said, okay, actually, I'm waiting on a confirmation of an appointment. So let me make sure to see who's going to be the vice chair. So from back in January, I believe is when we actually had the ad hoc committees done. It may have been late January, early Feb. I knew that by the time I knew who our vice chair was, which was the then Minister of Finance, Raeyhon, and now our MP colleague, I said, okay, let me follow up with Ardwell CFT, which is just so for those persons listening in, CFT is the financial supervision, right? So we have to go through them to make sure our budgets are passed and make sure the way that we spend money is right, because we have squandered our money. We have done bad money management, financial management over the years, which is why we find ourselves in this position. And I said, okay, let me follow up with Ardwell. Ardwell said, I may be in DC for a trust fund. I'll let you know. The minute I knew that he could actually cover that meeting for me, potentially, I said, okay, CFT, let's book the meeting. We booked the meeting for April 22nd. Ardwell's going to cover. In the meantime, I don't have my confirmation. So I'm thinking that I was going to leave since April 18th, but I can if I don't have my confirmation of my appointment. So I said, you know what? I didn't get it. I showed up at the meeting on Monday. And then Ardwell said, but you're here. And he said, you're here, so you're going to chair. And when we have CFT meetings, it's always closed door. So I said, yeah, I'm here. Maybe I leave today. Maybe I leave tomorrow. I need my confirmation. So he said, well, if you're here, then you can chair the meeting. So I said, no problem. So they have known for over 2 months that in writing, which is the official legal way of notifying Parliament, that I may potentially not be here, because I have been since January trying to book a date with CFT to come to Sint Maarten. Now, on the other hand, the week before, I think it was either the Friday the 19th, I was doing a recording. Again, I told Parliament via official means that I'm doing a recording. I will be late. So by the time I got to the meeting, I missed notifications. By the end of the meeting, MP Mallet, who that we know him, Cloyd, said, you missed me taking shots at you, man. So I said, taking shots at me for what? What are you taking shots at me for? He said, for show up, because you don't show up. I said, but I'm here. I gave notification in writing, the official way, that I wasn't here. I said, but why are you so bothered, MP? I said, why are you so bothered that again, you attacking me, telling me, taking digs at me? He said, man, you know what they do to me last election? Last election, they take digs at me because I wasn't here working faction office for 4 years. So I said, but this is a yoga saying. It's a yoga inspirational saying that we say. For those that don't know, I practice yoga. I do. I said, but MP, why you take that so personal? I said, you're gonna stay bothered then. He said, because they take shots at me that I wasn't here. So to that, I will say this: don't blame me for why you suck. Don't blame me for why for 4 years the taxpayers paid you, and then you taking it out on me when I'm trying to inspire people. And I want to tell people, the public, where this message comes from. If you Google, if you ever go to a yoga class, if you ever talk to a yoga teacher, what they tell you is this: show up on your mat the way you show up in the rest of your life. Or they swap it and they say, show up in the rest of your life, the way you show up in the rest of your life, show up on your mat. So how I did not know that my inspiration during the opening of Parliament, telling people, no matter how hard things get, show up. No matter when life tried to knock you to your knees, show up.
Right.
It wasn't a personal attack on someone, and I want to make that very clear, because what people are used to me is the truth. My truth is literally why people came after me and supported me when I came out and I said something that shocked them all, when I say, if we could only stop thieving, right? And everyone is telling me they came after me because I was brave enough to say this truth.
Right.
So again, I will say one more time, do not take my inspiration words and try and make it look like I wasn't there and I didn't show up for work, because you're the one that didn't show up. And what I will say is this: I create a space for you to feel comfortable telling me that you're embarrassed, that for 4 years, once again, you took the taxpayers' money and you didn't come to work. But I had 3 days, and I will tell the public of this country that the 3 days that I took for my wellness was to make sure that I can serve you for 4 years and a lot longer.
Wow. Said. Okay, so
The fact.
you kind of left everybody stunned there.
Because it's the truth, Grace.
Yeah.
Right,
What people
right.
can get from me is, they'll tell you I'm easygoing, but boy, I don't play with her now, she direct. People get the truth from me, Grace. And what I don't appreciate is when you are using something that I said out of the goodness of my heart,
Right.
and you took it personally. Because when I come at you personally, trust me, you will know. And I want to leave people with a thing, right? Everybody like quoting Felix Schwazi, who's my grandfather, saying, the gale don't stop at the border, right? But let me give you another jewel from Felix Schwazi. And it says, when you're up in the stands, don't get down in the mud and get dirty with the pigs. So just remember that. Take that jewel along with you too, because I will not get dirty with you in your lies. And the thing is that this government, okay, these 8 that just caused this government to fall, look for the truth from them, because what they have been offended about from us, from this party, is the truth. And the truth hurts, and the truth is scary, and it's one dangerous thing. And they will continue to attack me. They will continue to attack Melissa. They will continue to attack Patrice. They will definitely continue to attack Raeyhon, because all he has been giving us is the truth from VROMI, okay?
And I think, again, it's good to note, at the end of the day, when I heard the good MP trying to make it seem as though MP Weever was responsible for that credentials meeting not happening, I was disappointed, because, we all swore to uphold the Constitution. The Constitution, as a man says, Parliament is going to be at its full complement, which is 15 members. So that was just, to me, a hammer stuck, There's politics, and then there's just straight up being nasty.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if we had so decided that we didn't want to serve the country, we could have not given quorum for this. Now, 6 months, I was corrected. 6 months that former MP Mallon was not in Parliament, that the then coalition was at just 7 people in Parliament. And then not even at 7, because you had the 2 rescue rangers that they brought on to keep the coalition together, who also figured, well, opposition can do it. So we were, as my grandmother would say, the jackasses that would then be, we there giving quorum, so I don't have to come. Or I could be in my office playing PlayStation or doing whatever, while opposition gives quorum to the coalition I signed on to save. Or some people taking trips to go see basketball games in Florida and whatnot. I'm not going to begrudge you that family time. But at the end of the day, don't try to make it seem like we were not cooperative. And that's why I think I take a lot of heat from people, because you were too nice.
Right.
You had to be, a rougher opposition. And I'm like, there's politics, and we have made use of even a walkout scenario, when it suited the meeting that was going on, because the meeting made no sense. We've used that, but never for things that are just the official business of the people. And that's the reality of it. And I think, people need to remember that there's politics, then it's just being nasty.
Yeah. With that said now,
He's still shocked.
because I was thinking that when she was talking about the border and the mud, I something came to mind, and I remember her saying that when you pray for rain, don't complain about the mud.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. All right. MP Melissa, MP Gumbs, you described the actions by opposition members in Parliament as disgusting, petty, and disrespectful, stating that no one in the public is surprised by Mingret's move Please, break it down for us. How did you come to that?
No, but I mean,
decision?
Grace, like I said earlier, right? If you really track back, I listen to people's words, okay? And since this coalition was announced, it's just been one sort of petty side comment after the other. Well, I don't know when this government gonna sit, and I don't know the formation. We may still be here because the formation taking so long. And I think we all have to just start admitting the public secrets that have been whispered from, I also mentioned in that article from Sokagan to Kupokoi, because when you have people coming and telling you that certain members of the opposition, now coalition, whatever you want to call themselves, the Salty Seven, when you hear them going around telling people that they have the man in Harbor View in their pocket, that's problematic. That's problematic to me. And that has come. We've heard it personally.
Coming from their mouth.
Coming from their mouth.
But also,
You understand? So at a certain point in time, we just have to cut the nonsense and just talk the thing as it is.
Right.
And that's what it is. If you now have to track back at all the side comments and the pettiness, people can't change the name of their Facebook page on time to reflect their new position. So let's be real with what we're talking about. And I can offer social media classes to any incoming politician that would like to learn how to do that so you don't make a fool of yourself. But at the end of the day gotta end. So it's just to talk the truth and say, you know what? They just not like us, Grace.
Yeah. I play that.
I just not like us. It's just gonna be games and jokes and tomfoolery at this point.
That sounds like it's one of your favorite tracks. I'm a huge Kendrick Lamar fan. Yeah.
Well, for the people that said I've been too nice, I'm entering my Kendrick phase. So good luck.
I'm hearing you. Now, MP Weever, let me turn the mic back to you. Can I get your take? You were former minister of TIAC. Now, can I get your take on the draft motion submitted by MP La Cruz seeking to remove 3 ministers from office, namely the Prime Minister, Dr. Luc Mercelina, VSA Minister Janssen Webster, and the TIAC Minister, Heiliger Martin. Do you feel that there was some sort of underlying reason that these 3 specific ministers were targeted only 18 days in office where that particular motion is concerned? And,
did you understand the motion?
I was about to say, actually, Grace, this is what I will tell people. It's okay when you get nervous when you speak. Sometimes your voice quivers. But if you're going to come and you want people to actually understand what you're going to say, practice what you're going to read. Because the motion, I couldn't understand the motion when he was talking. I was like, where are we going with this? I was like, this is not even the right time to read a motion. I didn't get it. But, the thing is that what's funny, haha, and interesting is that the same MP who they walked out on during the budget debate is who they actually suckered in to read in a motion that was horribly written that I couldn't even comprehend it because my English is pretty good. My English is very good. But the fact that he chose those ministers, I think specifically for Marcelina and for Heiliger Martin, they had been in Parliament. They gave up their seat in Parliament to go and take that on. So that was an automatic one in there. I mean, they may have thrown in the VSA and VROMI in there as a sort of maybe preview for us as in, well, those are the real ones that we're after because those are the real ones that we can do the most damage with. Right? So but I'm not going to speculate because again, it didn't really make a lot of sense, the motion. I cannot really make sense out of nonsense. I am not fluent in idiot language.
Most likely AI wrote it, to be honest with you.
Sorry?
Most likely AI wrote it because that's
GPT.
Because that same day.
No, don't do that to ChatGPT.
No, that same day is also when the press release came out, where MP Maingret was basically announcing his support from the coalition. And if you read that press release, they were so eager and so quick to put it out. It was so premeditated that in the press release it says that MP Maingret announced on the floor of Parliament that he was going independent. But guess what? He probably never had the cojones to do it in Parliament. Therefore, he just, because I was there, Grace, I was there in Parliament. He just walked out. They probably went to sign something, walked back in, shook my hand. So I was like, okay, this is a game. Right. But if you're going to play the game, then do it with your head held high. Don't throw your rock and then hide behind whoever's next to you. Because I understand that your colleague MPs are tall, but they can't dodge a bullet that quick.
Right. So, because I understood also from the the former chair lady of Parliament also that she was basically caught off guard.
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
everyone
everybody
did.
was council.
Yeah.
I mean, the council of ministers, we were onboarding and sitting down there, going through the process. And at that time, we were sitting down speaking to different organizations about what's going on. At a certain point, Minister Heiliger Martin turned to me and said, "But what incompetence? We haven't even governed."
Yeah.
And it's the question about this is really something I found interesting in the letter of MP Mingret, where he said demonstrated consistent lack of transparency in governance.
Right.
And everyone's like, but it's been 17 days.
Yeah.
He
We're
has
gonna
not
sit
asked
down,
us once what was happening in
Yeah.
government.
So this is the odd thing that you say to yourself, this is personal. It has nothing to do with government or governance. This is about your personal checklist, checked off what you might have gotten. What
Yeah.
you might
Is
have
it really
gotten.
coming from him
And
though?
That's
No,
what
I
I
want
want
him.
From the 8th, you can say from the 8th, but I wanted to say something because you asked me a question and you said why those specific persons, and we all chimed in a little bit of why we thought, but I want to bring something back specifically to the Ministry of Tourism for an economy that is over 80% dependent on tourism. And here you have, before the election of January 11th, you have the outgoing government singing their own praises of their accomplishments and what they did. And I really wonder how they reacted to the release from the Central Bank of Curacao and Sint Maarten saying we're underperforming. Now, that underperforming of tourism did not come from the 17 days of this new government being in that is now no longer having the support of the majority in Parliament.
Right.
But so you think about that, because that assessment by the central bank is about the previous years and about the previous 4 years. So are you ready to actually lead this country in the right direction and to success, or are you ready to keep us down and out so that you can continue fit in what I call their cargo pants with 5 pockets on either side of their pants? That's what we have to think about. You need to pay attention to the state of things right now.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. I think to go back a bit to the fact that there was no testicular fortitude to even do this publicly. The letter that as a now former member of the Presidium that we received as second vice chair, that we were informed about, wasn't even dropped off by the MP in question. It was dropped off by a faction staff from the any faction.
Cowardice.
So for me, it's like, when I quit a job, I quit it to my boss's face. You understand? And I think that, but Grace, I'll be honest. From when you asked me earlier to clarify why I wasn't surprised, and MP Weever can attest to this, there was a trip that was scheduled to Brazil for Parlatino,
Right.
and I advised the good MP, in my opinion, I think you should stay, because it'll be all of us here, and then we can just need one. And I knew that MP Jacobs was back on the island, so we just need one to get the credentials done. Because at the end of the day, you have 2 elected members waiting to come in, Mr. Kotai and Mr. Brugh. And I suggested that, the trip be canceled. And the feedback that I got was, yeah, but I got to get my experience too. And I said, yes, in the Parliament of Sint Maarten,
And who's saying
not
that? Who's saying
Parlatino.
this?
And people great.
Oh, I gotta get my experience.
Experience.
Your experience is not to board a flight.
Latino.
Your experience is not to
maybe,
board a
maybe
flight.
you meant per diem. Maybe you mispronounced it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your experience is not to board a flight. And that's why I keep cautioning, for people to look again at the character of the people that you're casting your vote for, and consider the fact that even if they, because we've all heard, again, the public secrets, the handout you get election day or even before leading up to it, it's not going to last. That runs out. At the end of the day, that runs out. And when it runs out, you're left now with somebody who has no problem to disregard the people's business to go on a pleasure trip. Because let's face it, nothing has come out of Parlatino in 14 years. That's the reality of it.
Exactly.
Nothing to come out except, to be honest, drops of government, because that's where they get you.
Yep.
That's where they get you. As
All
the
right.
only coalition member
That's the
going
only
on a trip with 5 opposition man, that's curious to me.
Wow.
So when that happened, I
Right.
said to the Weaver, I think it's lost.
You sense that,
Mhm.
but that by the
So,
time
I
you
told her.
Melissa
Right.
Melissa said, Dudi, I tried to talk him out of going on a trip where
Right.
he would be the minority.
but actually,
He said it. He
Right,
told
but
it.
MP Emmanuel, who was here on the program Monday, said he told him to go.
That's up to
He's
him.
gonna listen to his leader,
Yeah,
his boss,
I guess,
basically.
yeah, and that's fine. That's fine.
Right.
Again, I'm just
Elected
I'm not anybody's party leader except the people in this room.
Right.
But I feel I have a responsibility to the country to actually display leadership.
I did hear that a few people
That's
on
the
the
bottom
outside
line.
were actually telling him not to attend, not to go on the
Yeah,
trip.
so I saw, and again, I said I have grown up in this, so I'm not new to this.
Okay.
I'm true to this,
Right.
right? So I know we've all heard it over the years.
Mhm.
We all, like you hear it whispered, okay, in the
Yeah.
streets, in the hallways, water coolers. So if I give advice, it's because I know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's not because I'm just trying to play games with people. And it doesn't matter if you're not from my party.
Right.
That's the thing. We're in a coalition together, right?
I hear
So we
you.
have to help each other,
Okay.
not
Right.
tear each other down. What the
Right.
previous one was doing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ain't
Okay.
nobody challenging me for leadership in my party.
Ooh. I hear
Nope.
you. All right. Now, MP Peterson, Mr. Peterson, I just keep
Yes,
saying
it's Raeyhon
MP.
Peterson.
Hey,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Peterson.
I love it.
Mr. Raeyhon Peterson, I do believe you were pushing ahead with filing a grievance in court with the governor, where your appointment as minister is concerned. However, now with the fall of government, has that process been halted? Did it ever get off the ground? And what are the circumstances surrounding that entire saga?
Well, that's a good question, Grace. Actually, ironically, on the day that government dropped, we had written a very extensive letter to the governor, basically explaining that he is acting outside of his authority as per the Reglement van Gouverneur, that he was acting outside of his authority by sending back the LBs to appoint me and MP Emmanuel as ministers, and also for the fact that I passed my screening. So that is where we were going with it. And like you said, Grace, I was ready to take it to court. I was ready to fight for it because I am positive that I am the best man for the job when it comes to VROMI. And looking at VROMI right now, I don't think that they are going to stop the movement anymore. Regardless of what happens with the elections, I think that right now the people have seen that, listen, no, something is wrong.
Mhm.
It is troublesome, and we are here as PFP to fix it. We are here to expose all of it.
Clean it up.
So regardless if I'm a minister or not, we are going to fight for VROMI. And when the elections, falls in, the right place, I will again, if PFP is part of the coalition, put myself up to be the minister of VROMI. Why? Because we are here to fix it. We are here to fix it. If you read the press release from the minister today, permanent damage has been caused to the ministry that has to rebuild this country, that has to sustain this country, that has to take care of this country when it comes to hurricane season.
Mhm.
So we need to get serious with it and understand that even though whether or not it's political tricks coming from Harborview, whether or not it's him being influenced by current MPs, I don't care. I am here for the people, and I'm here to fight for my rights to fix my name in order to do what I have to do for the people. And that's where I'm going to leave it, because if the battle does come again in the future where I would have to fight the governor, let it be known that I am 100% willing to.
All right. I even asked the MP leader, Minister Gumbs, had you probably seeming that the problem that we were having actually getting this, the screening passed, if there was a consideration to probably have someone else, take up the position as a minister of VROMI.
Oh, no, definitely. MP Gumbs and I spoke about it, and of course, as a party leader, she brought it forward to me, and I agreed. It of course, it is not about the person; it is about us having the right people in place, PFP wise, in order to fix VROMI. Now, like MP Gumbs says a lot, our bench goes deep.
Yeah,
I can pinpoint 3 people on our list at the moment who would be better ministers than the previous minister, and that is just a fact. So I was not going to put myself as, oh, if I don't get the ministership, then everything goes, No, we were going to let somebody else get screened and come in the meantime and do what's right. But our condition was very simple. If the law says that the governor needs to either sign the landsbesluit or terstond, according to Article 21, immediately send it up to the kingdom. If that was not done, we were not going to budge, because that is what's been happening since 10-10-10.
Yep.
Previous candidates who have, were supposed to be ministers, who knows how many times they were basically bullied out of, being a minister or retracting the ministership simply because, oh, well, that's unwritten rules. We don't know. There is a law. This is what we call a democratische rechtsstaat. So we have a law, and everything that you do, whether you're the governor or you're a minister or you're an MP, it has to stem from a legal basis in our law, according to Article 81 of our Constitution. And until that was the case, we were not letting the fight go.
Right.
And it's curious, Grace, and I'll leave it here as well. It's curious that the more I interact with people who are formerly of especially the National Alliance camp, the more I find out that these unwritten rules and norms are figments of several people's imagination, because you know, when you're told that, but so and so had a investigation and they were confirmed to be minister.
Yeah.
Because the previous previous prime minister went to bat for them to the previous governor. I said, that's cute. You know, so those are the things that I think concern me, because it means that your democracy is under attack. And that's why we're pushing now, and we'll continue to push, regardless of what happens with the elections, for there to be a national ordinance that outlines it for the formateur and their responsibilities, and for the governor and everybody involved in the screening process of the formation of a new government. Because the you know, things can only remain unwritten for so long, and unwritten means it's up to interpretation. So if you do it A, I could do it B, and they could do it C and D. So that has to stop, and that's why we, from 2020, advocated for a screening law. So it's weird to be told, you know, well, you didn't pass a screening law. Yeah, as opposition in parliament, your previous coalition did not want one.
Right.
Just like they didn't want to change the criminal procedure code, which is still pending, because then they could just prosecute politicians. Maybe some of you should be prosecuted.
Yeah.
So with that, I look forward to whatever's coming out of VROMI, and yeah.
I hear this often, and I've been hearing it over the past few days. People are saying laws have to be changed if we want to prevent this from recurring over and over again, where someone isn't happy in the position he or she is, he or she gets elected with a party and then decides, okay, you know what, I'm going to join the coalition. How is that something that can be changed? That if you leave, you either leave the seat behind, or Mr. Gumbs, go ahead.
And this is something that I always find interesting, because again, what I said in the very beginning, this has nothing to do with the law. This system does exist. It exists in a number of countries where people have a parliamentary seat and they can go independent.
But what makes ours so different?
Because political maturity. If we are basically electing people who don't understand what they're actually doing, who only in onboarding in parliament figure out what a job actually means to be a parliamentarian, and then drop the government 2 weeks after the fact of being installed, this is what you're going to have. So until we actually listen, you have to actually vote for somebody who has good character, good personality. We're talking about somebody who's not intrinsically, you can feel if they're there for something or not. We always have this problem.
Right.
This is a problem that is possible anywhere in the world. Yeah. It doesn't happen like how it happens.
Yeah, so it goes back to the people, Grace.
Yeah.
It goes back to the people and who we choose to be in these positions.
Yeah.
And as civilians, it is our right, and I'm not speaking as a politician, but just as a civilian who also has a right to vote. Our job is to vet these persons who are going to postulate themselves most likely next week. Our job is to vet them by what they say, by their mannerisms, by their character. It is our job, because if you choose people who you know have a very weak-minded mentality, who are susceptible to outside forces, it is inevitable that this is going to happen.
Yeah.
It cannot stop, because by the end of the day, going independent is the right of an MP. That is true, but it is not meant to be opportunistically used 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks after a government is sworn in, a government that you sign in accord to. You understand? So it's really not the law. The law actually, Grace, if I'm looking at the legal system of Sint Maarten, we have a very, very good, solid foundation of a legal system.
But it's being abused.
It's being abused.
Yes.
Not only by us as MPs and ministers or whatever, but also when you look at kingdom law, because our system also includes kingdom law. So when the law, for example, prescribes for the governor to either do this or do that, and he doesn't, it is the same thing that's going on there. It's about your character. So when you look at the MPs switching up, going independent, or doing the ship jumping, that's the word that we're looking for, ship jumpers, that is something of your character. And Beckham says it all the time, you cannot legislate character, and therefore everybody that brings the mantra that, oh, we need to change the laws, tell me which law exactly do we need to change and why.
Okay.
Everybody that says let's change the law, tell you which law, which article, and why. And if the answer to that why can be remedied by the simple fact of a person having integrity, they shouldn't change the law.
Yeah.
And I think what it goes back to is, like MP Gumbs always says, stability came because there were no open doors and windows for 4 years. And I can tell you, because personally, a past sitting minister came to me, Patrice, we hope it's you all we were going to form with, because you can't imagine what it's like coming to work every week as a minister and thinking that this can be the week government falls.
Wow.
Why didn't government fall for the past 4 years? Because opposition did not leave windows and doors. The law is there, the law didn't change. And
Exactly.
all of a sudden, these MPs of PFP, as well as other opposition members, said, no thanks, we are going to, the option is there, but we're not going to take it.
We
because
got
we
more
need to
offers
take
than
it.
Kevin. Throughout these 4 years, we got 10 times more
It's
offers than
character.
Kevin. More
Could've been
ministries,
minister.
more money, and more offers. That is what
Part of
happened.
it.
We
Wow.
said no. The three of us here said no for the 4 years, and guess what? They had a full term.
Yeah.
Asks for the same courtesy, the same prime minister back then
Right,
thanked
at least
us
once.
every
you
time.
have to ask for that courtesy from the previous government.
Apparently you do.
apparently,
You do,
Apparently.
because it's not about the people's
Solve
business,
issues.
it's about the tit for tat. So
Yeah.
apparently politicians, in the benefit of the people, we do have to ask, guys, please do not drop this government. And guess what? That still didn't work.
But it still didn't work.
Yeah.
I think we can ask that of the public. We can ask
The
that
public,
of the
because
voting
the
public.
electorate,
Because
right?
even when it comes to changing laws, you have to understand that when you are a minority in parliament, when it comes to voting on something that is unpopular, that will not serve the best interest, if you see that the many in there can easily sell themselves off to the highest bidder, that's what you have to look at. And then it goes back down to what kind of representation do you want, St. Maarten?
Yeah.
Do you want the representation that keeps you here, stuck where we are, losing our reputation geographically, losing the success of our economic, basically stability?
Yep.
No, choose people that have integrity and that will put us right back on track to successful living for all of us.
yes.
Because investors are also looking at and have always
Oh,
been.
gosh.
Oh, let me,
looking-
Yeah.
Okay, go
Sorry,
ahead. Go ahead,
I was want
Melissa.
to make a point about that because investors, so you got good and you got bad.
Right.
You got bad investors that just want to,
We're actually happy now.
who are actually happy now, whether they want to just, bring money in, pour concrete, wash money, whatever they want to do. And then you have investors that are responsible, that are willing to actually invest in a country, see things move forward, open up their networks internationally to benefit our schools, our businesses, whatever, our infrastructure. But then you have those that are just build, and think that a one-time building permit fee is their investment. It's not.
Yeah.
Hiring people under the books to pay them cash, okay, is not an investment in our country. So that's what I also want to make clear, because people say these foreign investment. It's not about that. You can court bad investors, and how you do it is with this current setup,
Yep.
or you can court good ones. When you got people asking for a $10,000 a month finder's fee because I confirmed your building permit for you, that's problematic to me.
Right.
That's a discount.
Corruption.
But
okay,
also,
okay, go ahead.
if I may, really
Sure.
quickly, because the first, this is what people don't realize. Within 1 hour of this news being breaking, I had executives from cruise lines calling me, asking me, "Is this true?"
You mean of the fall of government?
Yes,
Yep.
is
Right.
this true? This is executives from cruise lines calling me because, like I tell everybody, I keep my relationship open. I keep communication open with the stakeholders that are committed to St. Maarten.
Mhm.
And then a minister of a neighboring island said, "Is it true the government just fall, or so this coalition is a failure?" I said, no.
Wow.
Let me correct you. The island is an embarrassment, and the island is looking like a failure, not the coalition.
Mhm.
So people don't understand that even though you can go in and celebrate the fact that you broke government, the overall damage that
Is
you're
the
doing to
island,
our
yep.
country
Is the island.
is that
It's true.
stakeholders have no faith in us when we
Mhm.
continue to vote in people who have no right leading us. That's what I want
Which
to
is
point out.
ironic
Yeah.
because
Everyone
you
is
take the Ministry of
watching.
Fiat.
Yeah, but I think let's put it down to dollars and cents, guys.
Mhm.
The last 6 months, nothing has happened, for example, with the social and affordable housing project.
Yes.
The Prime Minister and myself, and former MP,
Yeah,
Mr. Peterson,
you
keep saying myself,
right?
we're going to go to DC to try and lobby for that to still happen. But at the same time, because now government has fallen, they're saying, listen, we can't wait again for a new government to come. So guess what? Everyone the last government spoke about came for the people, affordable housing, and in reality, they knew the deadline was coming and dropped government. It's not about countries,
Mhm.
about self. So the investors, the persons who are calling, I too had governments calling me from my former position as foreign affairs. Everyone is like, we can't do anything for another couple of months.
Yeah,
So
right.
this year has been a lost year in investment for St. Maarten.
Mhm.
I can tell you.
Yeah.
And what the Minister of Finance sort of brought out in her quick scan that all ministries are doing is we're not actually as good as was presented before. We have to be very
So you're also including based on what was said for the 2024 budget also?
We actually have to cut 22 million because as these two MPs said when they passed the budget, this budget doesn't look all okay. But you know what? We're gonna pass it because people have to get paid. We have to continue the government. Everyone
Right.
spoke about it.
Mhm.
Everyone questioned it. you know, and here we are now realizing actually it was $22 million and Gilders inflated,
Right.
and we have to cut it.
Okay.
And that puts us now delayed for 2025, which now
Wow.
means we will not get to prison because guess what? The Dutch have to approve that new budget to get the money for that too. So all of these delays are actually impacting the people, but guess what? We have a new great coalition.
You're implying that basically the country's broke.
Based on what
They left us broke,
Yeah.
There was nothing there when you went into basically the coffers were empty.
Yeah.
Yep.
But just like how the majority of us exist in St. Martin, where it's a month living, we're living paycheck to paycheck,
Sure.
and people, you can, we are literally like paycheck to paycheck. The government is just like that. Why do you think the government is always coming after the same persons that pay taxes, rather than trying to revamp our tax structure? Because they know that what I have right now, what I get in every month, I can rely on.
Yeah.
And they come straight after the same ones over and over. And then you don't have someone brave enough, willing to revamp our tax structure so that we can say, well, hey, how can we just take less from our people so they can spend more? And in the meantime, we get creative of coming to indirect taxes. Why aren't they rushing for that? They're not brave enough. Focus on the reality of what we need right now. But I think this is what happens sometimes when you have bad people in control. They keep you down on purpose.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Because by keeping us down is how the bad people can remain.
Yeah.
That's what you have to remember.
And it basically reflects on you now that you are not the right person to be in office. That look at this, look at what you're doing right now, and we can do better. So to speak.
They had 4 years.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I saw a comment on Facebook that said, if the country is broke, why are they trying to hold on to power? And I think it's not holding on to power, it's keeping it out of your hands.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. Keep it out of the hands of the people that wreck Dutch Quarter, the people that wreck Sucker Garden, the people that wreck the coffers. That's what we're trying to do. And the people that wreck Kupakoi, because it's ugly. Those buildings are ugly, let's be real.
And we're singing.
And we're sinking. So that's what it is. Not about holding on to power, it's about keeping it out of your hands.
All right. Now, MP Gumbs, before we wrap this up now with the snap elections on the horizon and quickly approaching, how ready is your party as of now in making another run at the polls? And will your party be looking to expand membership, or will you return with the same nucleus of members
So
of the
our
previous election in January? And we'll
Thanks,
let you
Grace.
guys
Thanks,
roll with
Grace.
this.
Yeah. So yes, indeed, our list is intact. We're essentially still planning with the 10 that we originally went into in January. We are, to my opinion, from what I've been hearing, one of the more stable parties when it comes to the election that's upcoming. But nevertheless, I know that especially considering the dates that have been set up, there's very little time for persons who may have been wanting to get into the arena to start a party or to figure out their options and such. And if you can look at what's there and you don't find yourself in the others, but you find yourself in PFP, give us a call. Give us a call. We can always have a chat. And we're very willing to consider persons who believe that it's time to put integrity and ethics and good financial management as a priority for Sint Maarten, no matter who you are, where you come from. And that is what we're interested in hearing from persons who feel that. And even if you are in another party and you find yourself scratching your head and saying, but why?
What just happened?
Call PFP.
And I'll point just because it's like we said, as PFP, we tend to keep it formal. We tend to keep it as a family. And I pretty much think that we're the only political party that is going to have every single candidate that ran on the 11th of January also run this time again, because that is what stability is. That is what stability stands for. And all you have to do is look at the other parties, look at the shifting, look at who goes there from there to who, and you're going to see that there is no team, that all they're trying to do is gather up votes, gather up more support in order to just maintain the power. And then by the end of the day, regardless of who gets the seat, the same mantra comes back into play. Let's make sure that we get this. Let's make sure that we get that.
Yeah.
And that is something that I want everybody to just watch out for, guys. They cannot fool us anymore. They gave us 17 days.
Yeah.
17 days. So at this point, I mean, it's the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead.
No, I think we've covered a lot of the concerns that the people have had in the last since election, basically, and I think we've given everybody an amazing opportunity to reconsider how they voted last time. Those that did not vote for us, because we're the ones that are going to give you the truth. We have kept it together. We'll continue giving you that. And before I end off, actually, I know that everyone said earlier on it was my birthday, but I have a lot of other birthday wishes for the May 23rd people to come out. So I'm going to say the names off really quickly. Happy birthday to you. And it starts with Apollonia Gumbs, Tayshawn Charlo, Perry Wilson, Diana Boyd, Dr. Geronimo Jones, Dennis Solomon, Richard Marlin, Elsie, Joey, who knows from Canagita, his parents' birthday are the same day today. Troy Florent, Terrence Ray, and Vanya Maynard. Those I forgot. My apologies. Happy birthday.
All birthdays today?
To May 23rd. And I want to say something very special about this day. It's also full moon. It's Buddha Purnam Day, and this is a day of new. This is a day of new beginning.
Oh, I forgot to wear my beads
a
today.
day that really Sint Maarten needs to know that here is your new beginning of your future government. And thank you very much.
All right, okay.
I
Patrice?
just think finance to shut off. I think, echoing what everybody said, because I think we've kind of covered it. And then Ludi has brought us into Nirvana with her final thing. But I think honestly, the message is clear. 17 days, guys, you're actually going to remember when you're going to vote. You're not voting on 17 days because nothing could be done in 17 days. Remember what happened in the last 4 years and why you voted them out. Remember why you gave the mandate to a new party to do something different. Remember that basically everything that is going to be thrown at you as to what this government has failed to do is actually a failure of the previous government.
Mhm.
And remember to always choose progress.
And remember to do not sell your vote, because they're going to come, guys.
Yep.
That is the only way that they're going to fool the people this time. Trust me, stay woke.
Right. And seeing now, Mr. Gumbs, that you will not be taking up your seat in the Netherlands, what's next for you?
So we actually have quite a busy couple of weeks ahead. The Prime Minister was going to attend the Small and Developing States Conference, essentially tackling big issues like climate change, economic gentrification, and the massive funding issues that small islands have, like Sint Maarten. He's asked me now to lead the Sint Maarten delegation as part of the bigger delegation, so I'll be heading out to that for the next week.
Okay.
Coming back, heading to DC, we're going to try and lobby for this money. We're going to set sort of a timeline with the World Bank of what we can hope to achieve to try and salvage what we can with 200 million. And then from there, I will go on to the Netherlands to sort of establish with the office, because we have not connected yet, and what can be done, of course, for the students coming up, because again, government falls, but the work must continue. We have students coming up, and we have to also meet our colleagues in the Netherlands and Dutch government as to what's next in terms of what can be fulfilled.
What is your basically, when you look at the man like Geert Wilders, that you have to actually be able to negotiate with him? Well, I mean, you're an you've been in this field for a very long time.
Yeah.
So what the approach actually? What is that?
I think with anybody you meet, it's trying to understand where they're coming from. Understand where they're coming from, so it frames as well how they think, and also then secondly, then what are their interests? What are they fundamentally afraid of, and what are they trying to achieve with this messaging that they have? If we've seen the last couple of months in the Dutch formation, essentially the message has toned because people do a lot of things to campaign, and then they realize it's not necessarily how the real world works.
Right.
There's ongoing discussions now because, of course, we see Plasterk is not going to be prime minister. We see that other two candidates have also pulled back. So now the Dutch government is also kind of trying to figure out, okay, in this debate of yesterday, what's first of all, the governing, of course, what are we going to do in Holland? And then secondly, who's going to actually lead it? But I think, to me, if you have a person who's open, who has good communication, who can actually sit back and say, I have an agenda, you have an agenda, how can these two work in the interest of our people who we're here to serve? You can get a lot done.
Right, I agree. Once again, thank you all so much for coming in. Anything before you go?
No, just for the people to remain aware, as always. I know that everyone is tired because I've already been hearing when I am voting again, etc. But that's what they want. So I know that it's exhausting, but these are the growing pains, and we're gonna get it right this time, I believe. And yeah, as Patrice said, I
you say you're gonna get it right this time.
I think that, like I said, you lost 1,000 votes over 4 years. I don't know what you're gonna lose for dropping a government after 17 days. So I'm curious to see what those results are going to be, and that's why I say to the public to stay vigilant and to recognize that this has been the bitter plan since January, since the outcome of the elections, and we cannot let them get away with it. Basically.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Peterson, you are basically open you've opened a Pandora box at VROMI. Will you continue to delve into most files that to actually bring them to the surface?
I'm
So
going
that-
right there after this interview, Grace.
Okay, okay. Wow. Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Once again, thank you all
Thank
so
you,
much
Grace.
for coming in and sharing this information with the radio listeners today. Members of the PFP party, Mr. Raeyhon Peterson, also Mr. Patrice Gumbs, MP Melissa Gumbs, leader of the PFP party, along with her. You've heard her. She's right here with us this morning, and on her birthday too. Once again, happy birthday, MP Ludmila Ludi
Thank you.
Weever. Thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much, and thanks to
Thank
you,
you
the
very
radio listeners, for tuning in. Monday we'll be back here. I got MPs. No, tomorrow actually.